Welcome back to MYBAGTV. Today, we're sitting down with our guests for a conversation that goes beyond entertainment. We're talking about life, choices, pressure, accountability, and moments that can change someone's future forever. We will discuss his journey and have serious conversations around violence, responsibility, and the recent national news about Karmelo Anthony case. Stay tuned. Let's welcome our guest. We have Rico today. How you doing, Rico?
I'm doing good, man. I feel good. I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful for you guys having me. How you guys doing?
Yeah, I'm grateful that you came, man. I think you have a very interesting story, and I would like to dive into it and
For sure.
get
Definitely.
your take on what's going on in the national news around Karmelo Anthony.
Yeah.
So tell our audience a little bit about you.
So how you guys doing? My name is Erico Montalvo, also known as Rico StillMadeIt. And I'm 28 years old. I'm from Providence, Rhode Island. I was born and raised. I spent a few years in Philadelphia through marriage and my mother. But I, for the most part, grew up here. And so I got involved into basically the urban side of life just from being an only child with siblings, but they were all separated from me. We all got different fathers. And I just got caught up in the street life at an early age, and it caused me to just develop a mindset that caused me to make certain decisions in my adolescence. And ultimately, I was led to being incarcerated at 18 years old, to which I had a fight, first-degree murder charge off of me, up until I was able to finally take a plea deal for a self-defense, to which I was released in 2024. So I did a decade behind bars fighting a self-defense case that led me here to all of y'all to try to just spread awareness on a lot of the injustices where I'm from, because it's so small of a state, and just the injustices in general to like people of ethnicity and color like myself. And that's really my main goal and mission, is to just spread awareness and magnify like the inequality when it comes to things as far as the justice system.
Oh, all right. So tell us what led you to get incarcerated.
So on July 10th, 2015, I was celebrating my 18th birthday, and I was out with friends. And so I was out with friends, and we were partying, and we were just out and about. And in my city, we have a thing called bootleggers, which is just somebody who brings you alcohol after the liquor stores are closed. And so we wanted to continue to party because it was my 18th birthday, so we were trying to party till it was daylight, which led us to call a bootlegger. But bootleggers, they want to be met in public places for their own safety. So we met a bootlegger in a Walgreens parking lot. One thing led to another, and just from my friends drinking and being a little bit tipsy that night, they began to argue, and they ultimately began to fight. And so while we were in this parking lot waiting for the bootlegger, my friends began to fight, one amongst another. And as they fought, some bystanders began to watch, and they started to egg on the situation. I was in the back seat of my friend's car that was fighting. So when he took off running, I tried to get in the front seat and take over the situation, but my driving skills weren't that because I was young. And so while I was backing out of the space in pursuit to look for my friends, I got into a fender bender with the bystanders that were behind us, which it was two people sticking their head out of the window. And we began to verbally exchange, where they was telling me that I hit them and that something had to happen. I began to apologize, and I told them that I was just looking for my friends. And I was ignorant to the fact that when you're in the streets, fender benders can be settled with money. So I thought because there was no damage, I thought that it was all good. And so they continued to talk to me, and I just got back in my car and I let it roll to the back of the Walgreens because I was looking for my friends. I didn't know where they were. In the process of this, I was chased down by their car and cut off in the back of the Walgreens. They jumped out of the vehicle, they reached into my vehicle, and they snatched my necklaces off of my neck. And the girlfriend that I had at the time, she was in the back seat. She got out, and she started to put her hands on the person that snatched my chains.
Hold on, Rico. Can we go back for a minute?
Yes, sir.
When you got out your car and you hit their car, what was that interaction like?
So the interaction was, I got out of the vehicle and I looked to see if there were any damages, and there wasn't a scratch, there wasn't a ding, there wasn't a dent. And so I just began to apologize for hitting their car. And so what they were saying to me was, yo, it's all good, we're humble. That's all I heard before I got back in the vehicle. I was ignorant to the fact that they was getting ready to tell me, yo, just give us a couple dollars and then we could settle it right here. Because all I heard was, we're good, everything is, and then I just thought that it was fine. I didn't know that they were going to continue to ask me for money. And so that's what led me to get back in my vehicle to begin with. I had told them I was sorry. I didn't mean to hit their truck. And I got back in my car. But I was looking for somebody, so I didn't hit the gas and speed off or anything like that. I just let the car roll towards the back of the Walgreens because I didn't know where my friends were. And I wasn't even in my own car. I had just got out the back seat to the driver's seat to try to take over the situation. So that's what led us to the back of the Walgreens. And so once the
so when it came,
once
go
they
ahead.
came back there and everything happened and they cut me off and jumped out and ripped my chains off my neck, my girlfriend had jumped out and she was trying to hit the dude that did it. I got out behind her.
Can we go back for 1 second?
Yes, sir.
What did you do when he grabbed your chain? Like, what? How was that
My
interaction?
once they had cut off my vehicle, the front of my vehicle, I was in the drive-through part where you pick medication up. So it was like the medication window, almost the poles that hold up the roof to that little drive-through. There was a small space in between to where they were wedged in front of me. So I couldn't really go left. I couldn't go right. And my window was down. So when they jumped out of the vehicle, I looked and he reached in the passenger side of my vehicle to the driver's side and he took the chains off my neck. And so the girlfriend that I had was in the back seat.
What was your reaction?
My reaction was it was too fast to react because when they pulled the chains off my neck, the girl that was with me got out the car immediately. So as soon as she got out the car, I tried to get out the car behind her. So I started going around the back of the car. She was sitting on the passenger side back seat. So she got out the car directly to the person that took my chains and robbed me. And she started to put her hands on him. I had to go around the back of the car to try to grab her. And so
Back of your car or their car?
into the back of my car to get to the passenger side of the car. And so as I'm in pursuit of her, I got met by somebody else that was in their car with physical force. And so in the process of him assaulting me, I was trying to back away. I was trying to swerve. I was trying to maneuver. And he was just on me, on top of me everywhere I went. This person was a lot bigger than me. And at the time, I was only 18 years old. I weighed about 140 pounds, maybe, soaking wet. So
can you give an example of how tall they were and how, like,
I would
compared
say
to you?
they were probably, so I'm 5'8". I would say they were probably like, the one that was assaulting me, he was probably like 5'10", 5'11". And the one that robbed me, he was probably like 6 foot even, I would say. And they were burly dudes. So the one that took my chain, he was about maybe like 220, 230. And the one that was assaulting me, he was probably like about 210, 215. And they just looked like lumberjacks to me. Like, that's how I would describe it. They had beards and they were bigger boned and heavier set. And to me, they looked like lumberjacks. And so when I was 18, I was fast, but I didn't have a lot of strength to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was in the process of getting assaulted. And I was trying to maneuver, but he was on top of me everywhere I went. And so before I had left the house that night, I took a knife with me just for protection, just in case anything. And so as I'm in the process of getting assaulted, I pulled my knife out. And I began to try to get this person off of me best that I could by wielding my knife. Ultimately, I stabbed him a few times before he backed off me. And then I went to try to get the girl and get her back in the car and take off. In the process of that, the people that I were with, they ended up
Can we go
coming
back
to
for a little while?
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, when you stabbed him, was you stabbing out of fear or just like, get off me? Like, he was too big to, like, he
Yeah,
was
so
trying to,
when I say when I was wielding a knife to back him off me, I was trying to get him off of me physically. I was trying to stop him from hurting me. And so I was able to get him off me finally after a few wields of the knife to where he began to back up. Once he backed up, I made my way towards the girl to get her in the car.
Did he know he was stabbed at the time? Or he was still like adrenaline?
In the beginning, he didn't because he continued to hit me. And I felt like maybe the adrenaline was pumping and he wasn't feeling it or something because it wasn't working. And I was still trying to maneuver. And it wasn't until maybe a couple times that he realized I wasn't swinging at his face. And then I think that's when he started to look, and then he realized, and then that's when he started to backpedal. And once he backpedaled, I made my way towards the girlfriend. And so
What was his friend doing while that was
So as that
occurring?
was happening, the girl that I was with was trying to hit him, and he had got
Mm-hmm.
back in his driver's side vehicle, and she was in his window trying to punch on him. And so my goal was to grab her because I was in fear that he was gonna hit her. And if I
Mm-hmm.
was 140, she was 125 maybe. And
Yeah.
so my thing was like, all right, if he puts his hands on her, he's gonna definitely knock her out, and that's gonna be
Mm-hmm.
bad. And so my whole pursuit was to grab her to get back in the car, and then I was met with force.
All right.
Yes, sir. And
So
so
when the guy after he stabbed him, he fell to the floor or he was just
he
holding himself or.
backpedaled, and I took my attention off of him, but ultimately he ended up falling onto the ground.
Mm-hmm.
By the time
So
he
you
hit,
didn't know you ain't know he was like badly stabbed. You just thought he was like
yeah, because my focus was getting him off of me.
yeah.
So his well-being wasn't my focus anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Once the first time that I stabbed him, he didn't get off me.
Yeah.
So I'm realizing like, all right, this knife ain't doing nothing. But I just did what I could. And once I was able to finally succeed and get him off of me, I continued my mission in pursuit of the girl that I had with me out that night.
Can you describe the size of the pocket knife?
I would say it was a
like
standard,
like yeah, standard.
whatever inch is a standard knife. I would say maybe it's about this big, maybe 3.5 to 4, or maybe you could say 4.5 inches, maybe something that you can clip to
Mm-hmm.
your back pocket.
Yeah, yeah, yes.
Yeah, it was one of
All
those.
right. So after that happened, he fell to the floor. What occurred after that?
So the people that I had went to the Walgreens with, they were in a separate vehicle. After that happened, they made their way to the back of the vehicle because I guess they were looking for me because we were
Mm-hmm.
2 cars deep that night. So they swing the door and they say, get in. I dive into the back seat and we haul off. I even had to leave my girlfriend because of how fast it happened. I thought she was right behind me getting in the car. By the time I dived into the car, they hit the gas and took off. And
So what was the scene? What was the scene like in that car
so
when after that?
it was just like a frantic, what happened, what just happened, we got to get out of here type of situation. Because we're from the hood and we understand that you might be dead to rights, but or dead in the rights, I meant to say, and you will still have to go through some sort of a process. And so to just get away from the danger that just came upon us, we were just trying to get out of there, and my friends were trying to get me far from there. Yes, sir.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
So after that, like describe the scene like after that night, like when y'all got back to the place
All right. So when I
and
got to
when
the
you
place
met
that
up
I
with
was
your
going,
girlfriend.
I got to a house. It was a friend of mine's house, and I explained to him what had happened. And so he actually told me like, "Yo, stay here, and I'm gonna go drive around there to see how it looks." And so when he came back, he told me, "Yo, not for nothing, there's yellow tape over there around the scene." But he told me like, "Yo, don't worry because every time there's a shooting, they always put yellow tape so that they could collect the shell casings. So it probably doesn't mean nothing." And so
Mhm.
that put the worries that I had initially when he said yellow tape behind me because I thought, okay, that's just something that goes on. And I ended up going home. He ended up dropping me off. I lived with the girlfriend at the time.
Was you still nervous? Was you nervous at that time? Was you
Nah, I wasn't nervous.
feeling?
My
All
adrenaline
right.
had wore down. It had been like an hour or so after the fact.
Mhm.
And after he told me that they always put yellow tape on crime scenes, any little bit of jitters that I had left, they kind of left me because I didn't think it was anything serious if he had just told me that. So
Mhm.
I made my way to the house where the girlfriend that I had made her own way to the house, and we met. And I checked her to see if she was here or hurt or bleeding or anything, and she was decent. And we just went to sleep. And we just thought it was just a wild night to where something happened, and we made it home. And it wasn't until the morning of the next day, it was about 7 in the morning, that I was woken up by my girlfriend at the time's mother, and she told me, "Yo, one of your friends is here." And I found it strange because it was 7 in the morning, and nobody has no business at my house at 7 in the morning like that. So I thought it would happen for something. So when she let him in, he came into my room and he asked me to please tell him I didn't do it,
Mhm.
which I had just opened my eyes from sleeping. And so I'm like, "Yo, what are you talking
Yeah.
about?"
You was caught off guard.
And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Please tell me you didn't do it." I'm like, "Yo, go outside," because I didn't want my girl's mom to hear that, get nervous, and then make me leave the house because that's where I lived. And so my focus was to get him
Mhm.
into the yard where it was just me and him talking. And as we got into the yard, he ended up explaining to me that while him and my friend were chasing each other around the parking lot fighting, he had ran into the pharmacy where there's a security guard and stood there. My other friend stopped chasing him after that. And as the situation was going on in the back of the pharmacy, he was in the pharmacy behind the Walgreens. So when we left, he stood. When the cops arrived, they took him. And so they began to question him, which led him to give them details, cementing all of us there, cementing me, knowing my name, knowing what I was out there for, because they were taking advantage of his ignorance, because he's thinking that he's just arrested for disorderly for fighting. And he doesn't even know that something just happened in the back of the Walgreens. So they sent him to tell me that somebody was critically wounded and that it's a big possibility that they could pass away, to tell me that they need to talk to me. So that was the conversation in the backyard. They was telling me like, yo, he was telling me, yo, they told me that homeboy's critically injured and that they just want to talk to you, that you should go to the station and talk.
So how they knew it was you though?
Because when they were questioning him, they were asking him who he was with that night. And he doesn't know what just happened in the back of the Walgreens. So he's like, oh, I'm just out with my friend for his birthday. His name's Rico. And so at the time I was making music, and my name was a little bit well known in the city. And so they were able to just look at YouTube videos and put two and two together, because me and that friend were in rap videos together anyway. So when they brought him in, he gave them the confirmation that they already knew, because he made music. They looked him up on YouTube. They saw us together. And then he told them that he was with me. And so it confirmed everything that they thought, and it cemented me onto the scene, which ultimately led them to want to question me.
So the person you stabbed, his friend must have gave an
account,
must have told what you look like. Yeah. So that's how they put y'all together. Like that's how they put y'all.
Well, they already Yeah, so he gave a statement to the police that night that that somebody had stabbed his friend, but he doesn't know me or nothing like that, so he doesn't know how to. All he knows is how to describe me. At the time when I was 18, I had braids down the side of my face, and I was a skinny, darker skinned person. I have a tattoo on my neck. I've had this tattoo since I was 16, so it's very distinct as far as describing somebody. That on top of my friend giving them my name, it kind of put the pieces together for them to want to talk to me.
Piece it together.
Yeah.
And you think they showed the like when they looked you up on your videos, you think they showed it to the other person and said, hey, yeah, that's him?
Yeah, for sure. I would if I was them, so I'm imagining that they probably did.
All right. So you was talking to your friend, and they told you that the police want to talk to you.
They just want to talk to me.
So what happened?
And so after that,
how you feel when that happened?
It doesn't hit me at first, because I think he's wounded. Obviously, I had to stab him, but it still doesn't hit me because it's not in my mind, it's not critical. They just want to talk to me, and in my mind, I'm thinking they want to arrest me because I did something to somebody. But I'm still not knowing the totality of the situation, because he hadn't passed yet, as far as my knowledge. And so after he finished telling me what he told me, I sent him on his way, and I began to process what was going on. And I told myself I'm not going in for questioning, because then I won't come back out, even if I'm in the right or in the wrong. This is what I'm thinking.
What was your girl saying to you? What was your girl saying to you at that time?
So she doesn't really know what to think. I'm explaining things to her in real time, but we're young. We were still teenagers. My birthday was the night of that incident. So a couple hours before that incident, I was 17. And she was 16. So we were young. And so I was turning 18 that day. Our minds are not fully wrapping around what's going on. And her less than me, because she's an innocent girl. You know what I'm saying? She doesn't get involved into violence or nothing. So she don't know the severity.
Was she panicking to make you panic more, or
she was kind of numb? I wouldn't, if she was panicking, it wasn't being shown to me, because she was kind of just going on how I was feeling. Because if I'm calm, she thinks everything's okay. I don't know the totality or the severity of things, so I'm not panicking. So she's calm because she's thinking, all right, that's just what happens when you get into a situation in public. You got to protect yourself. So at the moment, she's calm. But after he tells me what he tells me, I begin to look at the news apps from my city, the local news, ABC6, NBC10, and I began to refresh the website just to see if my name is in any sort of an article. Because if they're telling him to come talk to me, for me to go talk to them, I'm assuming they're going to make a news report about it. And I couldn't find it, and so I just continued, and the next hour after that conversation was me refreshing the news sites, trying to see if there was any sort of a warrant out for my arrest or if I had been in the news. And in the process of that, I received a phone call from one of my other friends that knew the severity of the situation, and they told me like, "Yo, I just saw a news article, and they said that the dude passed away in the article, and they're showing him." Uh, so he told me, "Yo, the dude ended up passing away," and then he tells me, "I got bad news." And so I ask him, "What could be worse than that?" And he tells me the dude that passed away was a Marine. And the news article that I'm looking at right now, they're showing him with his army camouflage and American flags, and he basically tells me like it's already looking bad for you because the news article is saying that somebody who served this country was slain at the hands of a gang member. And so right off the rip, it's getting shown to me as the narrative is being portrayed, and so that caused me to feel uneasy.
So are you a gang member, or at the time?
At the time, I was a gang member. Correct. At the time, I was involved in the streets.
What gang was you a part of?
So my city is smaller, so we're not really in the streets. They call it color banging, but we're not really a part of any huge chapters of gangs that would be recognized. It's more like block banging, which would just be the streets that we grew up on, you know. So I just represented a street called Lexington Ave that I grew up on out here, and it was just a collective of us.
And where? What state was this?
This is in Rhode Island, Providence, Rhode Island.
Rhode Island.
Yes, sir.
Rhode Island.
Yes, sir.
Rhode Island. All right.
Yeah. So once I received this news, now I begin to panic, and now I begin to understand like my life is about to change, because all I'm thinking in the moment is that he looks good and I look bad, and just from the news article that's getting presented to me off the rip, I'm looking even worse. How am I gonna reverse things to the truth when they're already saying that a just citizen was slain at the hands of a thug? This is the first article.
What are the people around you saying to you?
Initially,
how they telling you to move? How they telling you to move at this time? What are they saying to you?
So initially, it was just me and the girlfriend who knew, and then I began to feel uneasy where I was. So I asked somebody to pick me up and bring me to a house just so I could be away from my house, because I didn't know if the cops was gonna come try to grab me, and I wasn't gonna have time to have anything put together. I knew right away I was gonna need maybe a lawyer. I knew I was gonna need some money. I knew I was gonna need some advice. And I didn't feel safe in the house that I was at, because I felt like at any given moment they can come grab me, and I wasn't gonna be able to have myself together. So I went to a house that I felt was low key, and I began to call people and tell them to come over so we could talk. And as I'm calling people over and we're talking about it, people are telling me like, "Yo, it looks bad. The dude was in the Marines. They're saying that he served this country, bro. They're gonna try to slay you. You know that you look like a bad person in their eyes, and they're gonna want revenge for this person who served the country."
Was they telling you to run at that time or something?
That's one thing that people was telling me not to do. My friends was like, "Yo, don't run, because obviously you're gonna make it worse, and two, you're gonna delay whatever process it's gonna be by running, and three, if it's really the way that you're telling us, you're not in the wrong. So why would you run if you were just defending yourself?" And I was already thinking like that to myself too, because in the moment, I don't know what's justifying me or discrediting me, but I think to myself, well, we were in the drive-through parking lot. There must be some sort of camera footage. So I'm thinking to myself, like, all right, the cameras will maybe justify me if anything. And so I don't have in my mind to really try to run or nothing like that, because if I didn't know nothing, I knew it was expensive to run and get a new identity and go live another life. And it just wasn't in my mind to do that, because I didn't feel like I was wrong.
How was you making money at that time?
So at that time, I really wasn't making any money. So my family, they don't have money, and we don't have friends in high places or anything like that. I was in and out of the juvenile corrections facility for just violating probation over and over and over. I would do 90 days. I would do 60 days. I would do 6 months, and they would just let me out, but I would be back and forth. So I couldn't even get any momentum to make money. And the little bit of money that I would have would be from like little things that I would sell, or little things that I would do committing crimes, and I would be able to accumulate a couple dollars. But it wasn't no steady flow of income for me at the time when I was 17 and 18, because I didn't have any footing under me to really have a routine.
All right. So they tell you it's looking bad because he's a military Marine, and to not run, turn yourself in. So how the police catch you? How long it took the police to get you, or you to hand yourself in?
So I was in the streets for about 4 days, and I was just sleeping at that house that I felt was low key. And so in Rhode Island we have a
What is abandoned
no,
house?
this is an apartment that one of my friends had.
All right.
Yeah, so
All right.
in Rhode Island we have an institute called the Nonviolence Institute, and they just
Mm-hmm.
help the youth with through mentorship and things of that nature. And so the director of the Nonviolence was well acquainted with all of me and my friends. And so he would help us however he could, whether it was haircuts, whether it was hotels, whether it was anything, he would help us. And so some of my friends presented the situation to him, and we all got together in that apartment. And the conversation was, yo, we spoke to the man's name was Tenny Gross. He was the director of the Nonviolence Institute in Rhode Island. And their thing was, we spoke to Tenny Gross, and he told us that you can turn yourself in with him, and he'll protect you from any police brutality, or he'll make sure that you get the proper due process as a juvenile so that they don't take advantage of you. He'll help you. And so that,
Mm-hmm.
along with a few motivational speeches, because they were telling me like, yo, you got to face this. It led me to start heading towards Tenny Gross. We were going to meet up with him, and he was going to bring me to the detectives to turn myself in to get the case started.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know that the police had been following me for 72 hours I believe it was 72 hours. And they had been watching me and just trying to watch my movements to see what I do and where I go. And so when we were on our way to turn myself in to Tenny Gross, they ended up swarming the car that I was in. They stopped me at a red light. They came from all different directions. They pulled their guns out and they pulled me out of the vehicle. And so,
How you think they found where you were staying at?
so I was on my phone. I had never been in a situation like that, so I didn't know. So I was on my phone. I was still on my social medias, and I was still talking to people through my same number. I could tell that my phone was some sort of tap because my number wasn't sending text messages no more. It just kept saying send. My phone kept turning off by itself and then turning back on. And so I figured something was wrong, but I just wasn't aware of things like that. So I thought to myself, well, if I don't open my messages on social media, then they won't be able to pinpoint me. And I thought because my location was off on my phone that the cops can't track you. But I didn't know that they're well beyond sophisticated as far as technology. And I was on my social medias, which to them can show exactly where you are.
Where you at?
Mm-hmm.
So you think they was tracking and listening to your phone calls? So they will know you was about to turn yourself in at that time if you think they was
Yeah, I
listening to
believe
you,
so.
right?
To this day, I
But
believe so.
but you think they didn't want you to turn yourself in to make you look good. They wanted to catch you,
Yeah,
right?
that's what, because they didn't swarm and arrest me until that moment. They could have
Mm-hmm.
arrested me days prior because I wasn't doing a lot of movement. So I believe so. Yeah.
Yes. So how what was the day like when they came and got you? Like when you was on your way to the how that scene was?
Um, it was a devastating feeling. I would say it was a very heavy anxiety. It was a very profound heartbeat in my chest. It was a sort of heartbeat that you feel like people can hear it. Like that's how heavy my heart was beating. When we were at the red light, I could see cars doing aggressive U-turns in traffic that looked like police cars to me, like Chevy Malibus with tinted windows or Crown Victorias with tinted windows. And that's when my heart began to sink because one of my friends noticed, like, yo, look at them cars in the rear view doing all that funny movement. And the totality of things about to really come down on me, it began to sink in on my chest. And when they ultimately pulled me out of the car, I remember feeling a feeling of wishing I was anybody else in the world except myself. So like all the cars that were passing by, I just wished I was that person. All right, yeah. So when I was initially arrested, they were asking me where I was going, and they were taking the people that were driving the car I was in, and in the car with me into custody. And my friends that had actually set up the meet with the director of nonviolence were telling them, "Yo, we're going to the nonviolence. We was on our way to the nonviolence." And so they were like laughing it off like if that was a joke, because imagine somebody's chasing you for something violent and then you turn around and tell them you're going to the nonviolence. It was a big joke to them. And so we were adamant about them calling Tenny Gross. And we were telling them, call Tenny Gross, call Tenny Gross. He was about to meet us, call Tenny Gross. And so they just laughed us off. Up until I got to the station, my friends were released after about 2-3 hours, and then I stood behind. And when I got brought up for interrogation, they ended up telling me right off the rip, like, yeah, we ended up speaking to Tenny Gross, and he said it was true that you were going to turn yourself in. Um, But they told me right there, like, we've been looking at you for a few days now. We've been following your movements. And so that's how I was able to be aware that they were following me. And then the line of questioning began. And it began to feel aggressive immediately. And it began to feel like, because I was a gangbanger, I had violent ways. And because of my past and my criminal history as a juvenile, that I was liable to do something to somebody good in the world. And so
Was it like a good cop, bad cop situation in the
immediately, it was a good cop, bad cop. One of them was raising his voice. The other one was trying to look at me in my eyes. And it was a back and forth, and I was sticking to my story, but it was upsetting them because they were just telling me, like, yo, how is it that you were able to defend yourself to this extent, but somehow you don't know that somebody could have passed? And they were just trying to break me down to the point where I began to ask for a lawyer. And when I began to ask for a lawyer, they told me that they would get me a lawyer, but they continued to speak to me. And so they continued to attack, and they continued to pressure me through questioning and tell me what really happened when I was already telling them the story that I was telling them. And so
all this was recorded.
All of this was recorded, and it got to the point where I told them, yo, this is on camera. I asked you guys for a lawyer. And once I said that and I pointed that out, they left the room. They came back and told me that a lawyer would be afforded to me. They brought me to the holding cell where a lawyer never came. They kept promising me a time, and the time kept changing from 1 to 3 to 3:30 to tomorrow. Before you know it, I was getting led to court. I told them that I was robbed and assaulted, and it led me to defend myself, and they just wasn't going for it. And they were saying that it sounded good, but it seemed like I had got upset because they were going to call the police, and so I tried to go into this rage. And what they were saying basically was that I went into a drunken rage to show off for my girlfriend at the time that was there. So that was their story.
Oh. So where was the camera at that time?
So in the moment,
show you the camera,
I don't have any evidence as to the situation. All I have is the assumption, because they're telling me that I'm on camera doing what I'm doing. And so they're telling me that they just want to paint the picture. But they're trying to tell me we already know everything. So just tell us your version of it. But they're applying this pressure to me that is painting a different. So in my mind, I have to think to myself, if they did have the footage, they wouldn't even be asking me no questions. So now I'm in the middle between thinking that there's footage that justifies me and thinking that there's not, because they're trying to paint their own picture. So in the moment, I didn't know. All they were saying was that they had it on camera and they were trying to say their own version, which led me to believe that they were lying to me. So I didn't have any actual proof of what or what wasn't on camera at the time, but while I was going into court to be arraigned.
All right. How long did it take you to get a lawyer?
So I was able to see the lawyer. I was able to see a lawyer finally as I was walking into the courtroom the next morning. So they arraign you and they put you in a holding cell directly next to the courtroom before they're ready to call you up. And so as they were calling me, they were taking they were cuffing my hands, and a guard was coming to grab me, and then a lawyer walked in and he started asking me, what did I tell them and what did I say? He started asking me, like, yo, what did you say to them? What did you tell them? Right there before I walked into court. And I told him, yo, I told them everything. I told them that I was defending myself. And he seemed upset, and it seemed like the expression that he gave, he let out a sigh of frustration. And he said,
so this was a paid lawyer or a court-given lawyer?
So this was a private attorney to which I hadn't gave any money to. So when I was in there, I was asking them for a lawyer that I had spoken to while I was out for those 4 days before I was arrested. But he had agreed to represent me for a certain amount of money. I hadn't given him that money yet. So I wasn't sure if he was even going to come see me. I had never had to have a lawyer before. So when I was in the interrogation room and I was asking for a lawyer, they're like, all right, we'll get you a lawyer. And I'm saying his name. And I keep his name discreet because I don't appreciate the way he treated my case. And I don't like to give him any fame on my behalf. But I had said his name, and they was like, all right, we're going to call him. And then I never seen him up until I was about to walk into the... And so when I did see him, I'm like, okay, he is going to represent me. And I told him, like, yo, I was calling for you. And he's like, what did you say to them? He was focused on what I said. And he was like, you should have never said nothing. You should have kept your mouth closed. But like I said, I had thought that I was justified by camera footage. And I had thought that I wasn't in the wrong. I thought I was I knew I was defending myself. And that's why I thought my story would be upheld and just. So like I said, he let out a sigh of frustration. But he told me, come on, we're going to go in there. And so those are the pictures and the videos that you guys see of me getting arraigned in court, and he's standing beside me, and we're walking into the courtroom, and the judge is the prosecutor's talking over me, and the judge is standing over me as well.
Was you overwhelmed at that time when you was looking? Because they got a picture of you, like you looking directly into the camera at the
Yeah,
time.
so I had never seen, well, I had saw things on the news, but I had never, like, when you're a juvenile, they're not allowed to have cameras, and when you're a juvenile, nobody's even in the courtroom when you go to court. You just go in front of the judge and you sign papers, and you leave. And so first, when I walked into the courtroom, there were people sitting on the benches, like outsiders, like there to watch, and I didn't know who was what, so that was making me a little bit anxious. And then I heard the cameras clicking, like, repeatedly, like in bursts, like, and I saw there were multiple cameras and multiple people behind cameras taking these pictures, and so it was catching me off guard for sure, because I had never been in a circumstance like that. And once I got up to the pulpit, basically where they put you in front of the judge, I was just hearing cameras, and I was just looking around to just ingest everything. And so those are the pictures that, the one that I look directly at it, I'm looking back. There's a camera behind me. There's a camera on the side of me. There's a camera to the other side of me. And so I'm just looking at everything. And I ended up just putting my head down, and I was just taking it all in. But I felt like an overwhelming sense of anxiety in the moment. And my heart was beating really heavy. And I was just trying to really take in what was going on, you know?
Yeah. So when you obviously you were still in prison when you went to court. So how was that first night in prison? Like
The
in jail?
first night, I would say, it,
I'm only saying that because
yeah,
you've been to
yeah. So like the confinement,
like
the
before, but never for
right.
murder though.
So
So how that?
so after they arraigned me for first
Well,
degree murder, it was like a big
mhm.
sense of confusion that settled into my mind, because I'm confused at how they're even doing that, because I didn't know anything about the law, but I always assumed that what I had heard was true, and what I had always heard through TV shows and stuff like that was first degree murder involves premeditation. And so I was confused as to how they were able to even charge me with a first degree murder when I had never seen these people in my life, and I knew for a fact they couldn't prove that I seen them before. And so it was like a lot of confusion all the way up until I made it to the jail, and I had seen nothing change. I thought maybe by the time I got to the jail, they would give me some papers and it would tell me the real charge, which I thought would be a self-defense or a manslaughter. But when I got there and nothing like that was happening, it was just a lot of confusion. And the confinement itself, it wasn't really even crossing my mind, because I had been confined in the juvenile facilities before. So the actual
Mhm.
confinement of prison, of jail, it wasn't really affecting me. What was more so affecting me was like what I was in there for, and the totality and the severity of the charge on top of my head. And the first night, it was me acquainting myself with that feeling, but it didn't really hit me the way that I thought it would on the first day. This was sort of of an ongoing process as the time went on, and as I saw things weren't changing, that it began to really settle in. Like, yo, this is the reality, and this is not going to change. And then with time, I began to really feel the heavy depression of what was going on. But the first night, within itself, it was just me just pondering on the fact that they were charging me with something that I never thought I would be charged with.
What did prisoners say to you?
So
Like, cause your thing was
it was national. So
national.
when I walked into the block, into the mod that I had walked into, it was around 8 o'clock. And so in jail, the most thing people do is watch the news. Everybody watches the news. They want to be hip. They want to know who's coming in. They want to know who's getting out. So I literally, I guess the TV that was in the middle of the deck, I literally had just been on the news. The whole block watched it. They stood in front of the TV and watched it. So as I walked in, it was dead silent, and everybody's eyes were on me, and some people were even pointing at me. And so I remember that feeling being like a really like uneasy feeling. And some people began to say what's up to me, like, yo, what's up, bro? We just saw you on the news. Some people were pointing at me. Some people were looking at me. The COs themselves were looking at me with looks of filth and like with looks of disgust. And they were giving me like really dirty looks of aggression, and they were like grilling me as I passed by them. They was holding the stare, and I felt like them trying to intimidate me like with their looks. And when I got into the cell that I was going into, there was a Hispanic dude that didn't speak English, but I'm Hispanic myself. So we were able to connect on that level, and he was telling me, he was basically narrating everything that I was processing in my mind. And he was telling me like, yo, you was just on the news. That's why everybody's looking at you like that. We were all just talking about you, and then you walked into the block. So that's kind of what it really felt like as I was walking in.
Yeah. So what was going on with the lawyer that you had at the time?
So the lawyer that I had, he wanted money, obviously. So I began to call him through the family that was holding me down, which was the girlfriend's mother, and a few of my friends. And I was contacting him through them, and he was telling them to tell me like, yo, I'm gonna be up there to see him in a few days. So when he actually ended up coming to see me, he ended up telling me like, all right, your case is this high and this big of a case, so I'm gonna want this much amount of money from you. So he asked me for $10,000 that day. And he told me like, yo, if you could pay me in intervals, I'll accept interval payments. So I told him like, yeah, I don't have $10,000, but I can get it to you slowly and surely. And he agreed. And so he told me like, all right, you should have never said nothing. He doubled down. He was like, it's making it harder for me to fight the case now because you basically admitted to committing the crime. And so I'm telling him like, yo, but I'm defending myself. It should be some sort of a justification for me. I'm not trying to go in there and deny the whole thing because I know that what I did wasn't wrong. And he was like, it doesn't matter because you can't prove that you were defending yourself right now. And that's when I was beginning to be aware that the camera footage and stuff like that, it might have not have been in my favor, but I still wasn't 100% sure. So he's like, if you can give me the 10,000, I'll be able to represent you for the whole case. I relayed that message to the family members that were holding me down, and the girlfriend that I had at the time, she was working at Burger King, and she was bringing her weekly checks to his office along with whatever the mother would throw. So sometimes it'll be $250, sometimes it'll be $350, and he was accepting these payments, which was locking him in as far as a retainer to represent my case. And we ultimately got all the way up to like $2,000 in the process of months of bringing him money. And after that, I was beginning to become uneasy because he wasn't barely coming to see me no more. After a few months, he wasn't picking up my calls. I wasn't going to court. Nothing was moving. And so I told my family to stop giving him money because I feel like he's not even representing me. I used to have to threaten him that I was going to be all set with his services if he didn't come see me because I needed some sort of closure. I was just sitting there. And he would come up after I threatened him, and he would come with a blank notepad, and he would draw pictures and arrows, and he would ask me things that I had already explained to him. So he would ask me, for instance, so where were you, and how did you end up in the back of the car? And I would think to myself, yo, we already went over this. And if you're my lawyer, you should have dived into my discovery reports and all these things. You're asking me basic questions, and you're drawing on a blank piece of paper. You don't have any of my paperwork with you. So it was starting to make me uneasy to the point where I told my family, like, yo, I feel like he's just taking our money, and he's not really trying to work.
Was he going back and forth to court with you?
I
all the
wasn't
time?
going to court. So things were really stagnant, and he was telling me that he was going to bring me to court and that they were going to start having bail hearings for me, but I wasn't going, and it was taking months. And
So you weren't charged yet. I mean, you was charged, but you weren't
no, I
sentenced
wasn't
yet.
convicted. And so
Yeah, convicted. Yeah.
the only thing that I was looking forward to was a bail hearing. But he had came up there and he had convinced me to waive my bail hearing because I was ignorant to the law at the time. And he told me that a bail hearing wasn't in my favor because a bail hearing in our state is like a small trial. A bail hearing takes anywhere between 7 to 14 days or something like that. And they call witnesses up on the stand, and they basically present the fact of why you should have bail or why you shouldn't. And so he told me that the witness, which was the person in my case, was going to court on me, the one that robbed me of my necklaces. He told me that he was pointing me out. He pointed me out in witness pictures and whatever, and he was telling me that he was willing to go to court and he was going to go to court against me. And so he told me basically that I didn't want that. So me not knowing, he told me, yo, I think you should waive your bail hearing because you don't want all that on you right now. And I waived it, taking his advice, the advice of my counsel. But I didn't know that that wasn't the right move because I should have at least tried, because then you'll never know if you don't try. I should have at least tried to see, even though they don't really give out bail for like first-degree murder charges in my state, but I still could have went up to the bail hearing and any testimony given against me would have been locked in, because anything you put on file stays locked in. And he was lying. The witness was he was telling the police the narrative that they were pushing. He was telling them that that's what it was. So if he would have went up to the court in the bail hearing and said those lies, later down the line, we could have been able to cross-examine him and use that. But since I waived my bail hearing, I didn't even get to lock that in my favor. So that was the only court date that I would have had, but I ended up not having it. And if I did end up going to court, I would go sit in the court cell all day. Nobody would come see me. Nobody would come talk to me. And then I would go back to the jail at the end of the day after spending like 8 or 9 hours in the courthouse. And then I would call him, and then he would maybe answer, and I would tell him, yo, I went to court. And he wouldn't even know that I went to court. And so it was a buildup of me starting to see that I think he was just taking my money, and he was a lawyer that if you have $1, he'll take the $1, but he'll represent you as if you only paid him $1. And so I just had the misfortune of coming across somebody like that for counsel.
So how long was that compared to when you first got arrested? Like how in months, or how long did you had that lawyer?
So I had that lawyer for about 2 years, up until 2017.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so
right.
in 2017, I tried my best to hold on to him as much as I could, because it wasn't my money. And the money that had been given up, I was shameful of basically throwing it away by firing him, because that was hard work and money right there. So it took me a while to bring myself to the point where I told my family that I couldn't use him no more. And by the time I finally did, it had been 2 years in. My court dates were very scarce and in between, and there had been no traction in the case. There was literally nothing improving, or nothing. It was just me just feeling like I was just hanging around and floating around. I wasn't. If I did go to court, they would ask for a continuance. If I did see him, he would tell me he needs certain motions and certain things, and he would always promise empty things that never would come to be. So after 2017, I just felt like there was no point, and enough time had passed to where I was starting to lose valuable time, and we came to the conclusion together as a unit that we were going to have to get rid of him. So after I got rid of him, I put in for a public defender because I needed counsel, and I had the fortune of meeting a lady named Dawn Huntley, because every case in the state of Rhode Island, every private attorney, they owe the state of Rhode Island a pro bono case. And my case ended up being the one that my lawyer ended up getting that year for the state of Rhode Island. So she's a private attorney. And that ultimately led me to have an attorney, but it's called the court appointed. It's a difference between a court appointed and a public defender. It's two different firms. And so I got the fortune of meeting a private attorney that owed the state of Rhode Island a pro bono case. And it ended up being Dawn Huntley. When I met her, I explained to her what had went on. And she explained to me that she knew my case. She had been aware of my case, and that she wanted to represent me. So when I came across her, it was just like it was a win for her, because she felt like my cause was just. And right away she told me, I believe you. And she told me that from what she's read already, without even knowing a lot about my case, it seemed like they were after me. So that gave me a big sense of hope. We got acquainted with each other, and she told me, I'm going to do my best to help you get out of here, because I don't believe what they're saying against you. So that's how I finished off with the last lawyer, and I ended up meeting the new lawyer.
All right. So when she took over your case, how did it start moving? Did it start moving faster, or?
So when I first met her, she told me one thing that I'm gonna need is time. One thing she was gonna need was time, because she told me my case file was this big. It had already been 2 years, plus everything that comes with it. She also told me that for what the angle that we was going at it takes time. So she told me right off the rip, like, yo, I'm gonna need time, because this is a big situation. And so I was willing, because I knew that the severity of the case was a big one. I also knew that I had put myself in a bit of a bind by admitting to them that I had committed the crime. And so I was willing to accept that the process might take a little bit, because I knew that I had to admit to a certain amount. So in my mind, I always had in my mind, like, all right, I might have to pay for what I did. I just don't want to pay excessively, because I know that it's wrong. in a place where you can't defend yourself, like in Florida or in Texas, like they have stand your ground laws. So I knew in my mind, like defending yourself in the state of Rhode Island means you got to do some sort of a time in jail. So I was willing to accept the fact that she was gonna need time without really feeling a way about it. Plus, she just took over my case after 2 years. So that's how the process began. But she would always make me feel comfortable. She would answer every phone call. She would come see me whenever I asked. She would always keep me in the loop of things, and she would always try to set up court dates and things of that nature. So that was kind of like the beginning stages of me having her as a lawyer.
So how much time was they offering you at that time?
So after
Like,
having her as my lawyer for a little while in 2017, she had came back to me probably like later on that year, and she told me that there was an offer on the table. And the offer was the offer that comes with the charge. So in the state of Rhode Island, when you're arrested and charged with a first-degree murder, the offer that they usually present before you is 60 years with 40 to serve. And so she told me, she was like, by law, I have to inform you that the offer that's presented before us is a 60-year bid with 40 years to serve. And so when I was 19, when I was 20 years old, I was offered 60 with 40 years to serve.
How was you feeling at that time? Like how was you taking that
So
in?
it was a
And
really
what,
it was a really scary feeling. She did a good job of telling me that just because they're offering that, that's not my fate, and that she's not gonna settle for that. But she's just informing me that that's what it is. But she did a good job in the moment of letting me know, like, yo, I'm not going for this. I'm gonna fight this as much as I can. But this is just what they start off offering with. And I never had in mind that I wanted to go to trial. I never really wanted to go to trial because I know that the consequence of losing trial is life in prison forever. So I had saw a lot of people lose trial on the news, and while I was there in the process of being there, I was witnessing people lose trial and catch life. And so trial was something that I really didn't want to have to do. I was always willing to maybe do some sort of a time that is proper for defending yourself. But I never wanted to do anything that didn't make sense. So something like 40 years to me didn't make sense for defending myself because that's more than what people consider life bids. So I told her, she asked me like, yo, what do you want to do? And I told her like, yo, I'm willing to do time as long as I can bounce back in a healthy manner. Meaning I'll do something that makes sense to the charge that I want, but I'm not trying to do something like 40 years. I told her like, I'll do something like 5, 10, 15. And the worst case scenario, if I have to take a 20, I'll take it because at least with a 20, I won't be over 40 years old. So I'm trying to put myself in the best case scenario if the worst case scenario comes about. And so she told me like, all right, I'm going to try my best to get you what you want because I wanted to just make it back home in a way to where I still have a life. You know, I didn't want to come home 60, 70 years old and life as I knew it was gone. And so we discussed that together, and she told me that she was going to try to fight that offer down. And then that's how the process began of us fighting off that charge because they wasn't even trying to amend the charge to what we wanted. They had me on the first degree, but they didn't have any evidence to support that it was a first degree. And so it was an uphill battle from there.
so years was passing as she was doing it, or it was
It
like
was
months?
years. So ultimately, I ended up fighting the case for 8.5 years. I stood in the county jail for 8.5 years fighting the case before we were able to come to an agreement. And that whole time, the offer was staying firm. They wasn't trying to really budge on the offer. And I also had to endure COVID-19. When COVID-19 happened, the court system shut down for us. We weren't allowed to even leave the jail because of the severity of COVID. So there was a good 2-year period where I wasn't even allowed to go to court, and my court proceedings and all that came to a standstill because COVID was taking over the world. So that was almost 2 years of stagnancy that we wasn't able to continue forth. And also my lawyer had suffered like some mental health challenges to where she had to recover, and I had to deal with her assistant until she got better. And so there was a lot that went on throughout that time, and it was really tough and it was really long stretch. But in total, it was a period of 8.5 years of me fighting that case before I took time and I was able to sign a deal that was something that made sense to what I was only that was only presented before us once the threat. And once it got up to around 8 years on a trial, because even though I didn't want to, I was starting to feel like I had nothing to lose. I was starting to be in jail for years on years, and I was just losing valuable time of my life. And they weren't forcing, so the time was just going. And on top of that, like, if I lost trial in court life, it wouldn't be any different than doing 40 years and almost in my 80s. And so I just felt like I didn't have anything to lose by that. We should just suit up, because if not, they were just going to continue to let me on how long you could sit in a county fighting a murder. So I had already. The thing about Rhode Island is that they give you the opportunity and the chance to put in a motion for a speedy trial. You have to go to trial within 6 months, and if so, because I had the option, it's like if I give you the keys to my house. Here, take this key to my house. If you never use that key to, and there's no statute to when you can walk in and out, but you have given me the option to put in for a speedy trial was them telling me, we're not forcing you but we're not gonna take you to trial, leave you with that offer. And so that's what that's what go to trial. They didn't have to force me to trial. And if the argument came now, if he wants, he don't have to be there for that long. And so that's where it was tough. Years, we figured like, yo, they're just gonna keep letting you sit, and anyway, so we're gonna have to go. And then finally pushed the issue and suit up for trial. My lawyer got all the trial notebooks ready. And when they started to conference was when my lawyer started with the evidence that she had, she could possibly win trial, because it's just premeditated murder, but the evidence displayed self-defense, which is what they was doing. And so my lawyer was just starting to present that before the judge. Me against this prosecutor, they're trying to say it's a gangbanger mentality narrative, but I can easily say the body cam, I'm sorry, with the fender bender footage that we have, because that the actual fender bender was on camera, but the incident wasn't, because we went from A to B. So that was out of.
So they caught you. They caught you.
They caught me getting out the car. Caught the exchange, but there's no audio. So in the their truck, I see there's no damage. I begin to exchange words. My fault. I didn't mean to hit your truck. I'm just trying to get my boys and get up out of here. On that, but with the body language on the footage, you could see me do like, and then you could see me get back into the vehicle and take off to the back. We don't have stand your ground laws out here, but we have a law called. It means that you see how there's a wall behind you. If I pull out a to you, you can kill me, because there's a wall preventing. Do that same exact thing to you in the middle of the street, because there's space and try to flee first, and then if I chase you, right? But the thing with me was, I fled. I A to B, and they ended up where I was after.
Yeah, by getting back in your car. Yeah, by getting back in your car.
Chose to chase me and get to where I was, because had not that been the case, they would have never been. Right? So my lawyer's presenting that before the judges with the footage. Yo, with that body language that he's doing, talking about me, stance, because aggression never goes like this. And so if you had to put words on somebody doing like that, this would mean no problems. This would mean I'm sorry. This would mean I'm sorry. So the body language that she did have, she was presenting it for. Plus, they was outweighing me. They were outaging me, because with time we found 4 or something like that. They were in their mid-20s. Plus the fact that it was just a lot of combining factors that if we had went to trial, my to get this all knocked off, because look at the time that he's been here fighting. Finally starting to bargain. And the first bound from 40 to 23 years, my lawyer came and told me because the fact that they even bargained means that we have some wiggle room now. If with him, either take it or go to trial, right? So that led us to know, like, all right, if I'm dead to rights, because they put the offer down half. I'm gonna go in there and I'm gonna try to get you the 10 that you initially asked me. So after a few back and forths and weeks of back and forth, it went from 15, and then my lawyer was trying to get the 10. They wasn't trying to go for the 10 because they thought it was in the middle at 13. She came and presented that offer to me. By that time,
Because you already
so by that
yeah.
time,
So
when she
that
presents
you
a
would have
13-year offer to me, it's guaranteed freedom too. I would maybe be able to get out island. You go up to see parole at 1/3 of your bid, so 8 years, and so it was starting to be like shimmers of hope. And so it had to be amended from a first degree to a manslaughter because that's what it was. So in the state of Rhode Island, you're not allowed any good time if you're arrested. And degree murder is considered a capital offense here. In the state of Rhode Island, they afford 10 you earn by working. So when the charge is a manslaughter, and if you happen to sign for this manslaughter, you're allowed staying out of trouble in jail. And if we do the math, it's more than 8 years, and you'll be even closer to the door than 4 years away. I told her that that's what I wanted to do, and she wanted to go to trial still. Much means that we have a good chance of beating them. If not, they wouldn't ever. But I wasn't willing to guaranteed freedom, and trial was not guaranteed freedom, even if you have a big case. I ended up telling her that I wanted to take that time. We took the time. I was able to cut about 1,300 days of good time, and I had about 250 days of working days. I used to clean the block. And so I had about 1,500 days of good time, which was like 12 years instead of 8, because I was down for 8.5 plus the 3.5, a year left. And so it ended up working in our favor, which is the actual prison. I did one more year and I was able to be released.
all right. So knew you was about to get the release, and you got released. What was that experience? Who came to pick you home?
It was surreal, man. It was like a pinch me moment. Back out to freedom because I went to the medium security for the minimum security for 6 months, and so those buildings are close. When I was in the county, which is called the ISC, the Intake Service Center, there's no privileges. You're super locked down, and so when I was in the medium, it was, and when I got to the minimum, they allow you to work. They allow you to go back to the jail at the end of the day. So to feel freedom again, slowly but surely. So by the time I was set free, it was like a good entrance into freedom, but it was still surreal because daydream that I had for years. I was daydreaming being free for years because it was a dream to me. Because just the possibility of me not coming back home was enough for me now. It's not even like a reality anymore. So when it did become a reality, it was surreal to me. While I was in there, we became close and we built bonds together. They began to come into my life to support me while I was there and help me get through the bid. They were all there, and I was grateful that I had just been able to overcome it and have somebody to receive it.
So have you faced after being released from prison, and how
Incarcerated, the news article was on the social medias, Instagram, and I received a really sick eye because the person is a Marine and I'm considered a gangbanger. So they was a scumbag who did something to a just person of society, a big debate because people who are from urban communities were defending me like, yo, you guys don't even mean he ain't capable of doing wrong. And then you got the people who are closed-minded saying throw him away, bring back the death penalty, he should pay for his crime to it at all. That became a big enough argument on social media and so on the internet I became well known for our country. And I had heard about that while I was in there, and I had saw myself talk to people on the phone who told me like, yo, you're going viral out here, bro. Everybody's arguing about your case. You're right. And it was something that I felt like I was gaining fame for, like one of the worst possible situations of my life, because like I said earlier, the COs in there, they feel like they're a sort of of a representation of the United States because they're favoring the Marine, and so they're treating me bad without even knowing what really happened. I was kind of like nervous at the fact that I was gonna have to go out in public, and I didn't know if people in the workforce were gonna treat me funny because it was like a really big discussion. Schools were still up, and so when I got back onto the internet and I looked, it was huge. It was on TikTok. TikTok wasn't even out when I first went to jail, and Twitter, it was, if you Googled my first and last name, a picture of me in court where I was like, yo, they basically slandered my image to the poor criminal. And so online, I was really timid about, I didn't even know like really how to go about telling my side of the story on platforms. So I just went in time, I was making music in my city. And so I felt like God had gave me testimony through music again and music videos and things like that. But it wasn't seeing the music, they was just kind of like brushing me off as just me getting lucky. Done like the rest of my life in jail. And it wasn't until like in recent year that and there are places and things that I can do to actually bring awareness to my internet narrative. And so I've been making my rounds, just going places and just they can do as far as slandering your image. People can do to fight back against that, because when you're in jail, you're helpless against what. And that was a big reason why I didn't want to go to trial, because I'm figuring, all right, if I'm being slandered in public eye, that I'm going to have to pick for jury selection. So what if somebody on the jury is radical? So all of that played a part into me not wanting to go to trial. By giving out the truth, I started to make my rounds, and so that's what my presence on social media. And there's been huge amounts of backlash of people saying that just trying to save face. But there's also been like big amounts of support of context that I'm giving them, that I wasn't in the wrong the way they try to,
Do you still stay in Rhode Island?
Yeah. Up until, until we get the means to really go somewhere else. But as of right now.
Yeah, so the temperature still same, like police
It isn't something where, because a lot of police aged out, a lot of 10 years that passed in total. So it's like a whole new generation of people. A lot of my stuff has been making its rounds as far as social media presence, a lot of things. So I've had people like really contact me and tell me like, wow, bro, if it hadn't been, I would have believed what the news said. So I believe that a lot of people were truth through what I've been presenting forth. And so I haven't really encountered anybody sort of pressure. And if so, I feel like I would be able to articulate myself, nobody's position to judge me for what I had to do to survive, because if the tables turned, then I wasn't to feel like people would have been putting that pressure on the other person.
So let's switch to another case that is kind of did you look
the similarities attracted my attention, and it caused me, just because of the ages and the things of that nature, and the fact that it was a knife involved and it was being claimed that. Looked into it, and I actually I saw some similarities and I saw a lot of difference. The way that he was treated as far as the sentencing, I don't find it just. I don't feel it for something that you do in protecting your boundaries as a human being. It's an open carry in the world, but they aren't able to defend themselves in every situation. I feel like that's not pistols and firearms, and I feel like firearms are almost guaranteed death, which is like 50-50 fatality rate, I feel, and you use it to defend yourself, and you went out with the intention of harming somebody. I don't feel like that's just. I feel like the way he was treated, I feel like it's unjust, because it was happening to me. They were trying to charge me with a first degree murder. They had no proof that I had malicious intent. They had meditation. They had no proof that I had ever even encountered these people in my life, and they offered me time according to that. And I'm just, but his situation is different because he's actually convicted. Meaning that now he has to go through the appeal process and hope that his appeal gets. And so I don't find the situation just at all. And I think that he kind of exaggerated and he kind of went beyond what he should have. But himself, and you got people saying that his personal space should have been respected, with the fact that if you give somebody a command to respect that command, that person can't dictate how you respond. Changes they had in the past, only they know. But what I do know is that under a tent, And it says that the victim in the case went to the tent saying that he didn't belong there. So right there, I feel like he was in the wrong, because to sit, and he came trying to verbally put down. We don't know the reason why. On top of the fact, it said through witness statement that him, and that he reached into his bag and let him know that his personal boundary was violated. And then was the victim in the case still violating the command of, and he showed him what the consequence could be if he still proceeded to. I'm sorry for the family of the lost their life in the case, because two people lose. But tell somebody what your personal boundary is, and what's I'm on the side of the fence, to where if they still continue to dictate what happens, and the people that are saying that he used excessive, and the people that are saying that he used excessive with the intent to kill him because he only stabbed him one time, I feel like if times, then you could have said, all right, you're trying to like force the fact. I feel like one time is enough to try to get somebody off of you. I had to stab somebody multiple times because the first stand. So I really don't see as a basis to give him 35 years Texas, so I wouldn't understand. But I think it's a rough situation where he's going.
So how you think time will be?
I think
like,
it'll be the state of
will
Texas
go?
is a really
Like-
big and extremely hard thing to do, because one day in jail, surviving or dying. Nobody knows if they're gonna survive prison. 5 years, or people say, I had somebody ask me this morning, 35 years is enough. Somebody said if he would have only got 5 or 10 years in life. But what I explained to that person was one day in especially for somebody who's underage and he's 19 years old. I feel like 30, let's say he carries out his 35-year sentence, right? In the decades past, he's gonna be in jail longer than he was alive free, for one. Two, your life can change in a matter of a year. People can die, people can be born, society can change in multiple different ways, to the point where you won't recognize society anymore. And in 10 years, he can come home to a new world that he doesn't know how to process. In 20 years, he can come home to a new life. And in 30 years, he can come home to complete confusion and not be able to function, because he's a teenager still. And though we consider 18 an adult, he's still in his teen years. His brain is not developed like an adult's brain is developed. So when he was 17, he didn't have the ability to make critical thinking decisions like a 25-year-old can. So I don't believe that a sentence that outweighs his lifespan is just as far as consequence, because now it becomes an eye for an eye thing. And I feel like what they're doing is, because somebody lost a life, they're trying to take a life. Because when you give somebody 35 years, you take the life that they knew, and you pass the lifespan that they had. And so I think prison will affect him tremendously, because he can adapt to his environment and become a product of prison. He can turn violent in the pursuit of just defending himself and trying to keep himself sane. He can become institutionalized, which is a mental loop that people in jail get into that ends up doing damage to their train of thought. And there's a lot that can happen to him that will definitely hurt him. So I think that it can be tough. I can't lie, man. I think it could definitely take a toll on him.
Oh, so with all the racial divide that comes with cases like yours and this one, what do you think the different communities can learn from situations like this?
I think that in the United States of America, the media posts and outlets dictate a lot of how people move about with cases that are national and in the public eye. I think that narratives can be painted that can affect physically people's lives and the outcome of people's lives. I think that every situation is different, and I also think that things can happen in life regardless of how good of a person you are. But I just want people to know that in the country that we're in, it's very easily to get your life dictated by the social medias and by the news outlets. So I think that we have to do a better job of having our social media platforms. I think we have to do a better job of having representation firms for people of color and ethnicity, so that they don't get just dragged, and they don't get dictated through what somebody else wants to say depending on how they feel.
All right. So in closing, is it any I want to thank you, and I want you to say how people can reach out to you, how they can connect with you, how they can hear more of your story.
Yeah, so yeah, I
You got
appreciate you guys
Instagram,
having
anything?
me again. It's always an honor to me for somebody to give me the space to bring awareness. Right now, every one of my platform handles is the same, so you can find me anywhere you need to at Rico Still Made It. It's all one word, Rico Still Made It, on TikTok, on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube. Rico Still Made It. We're just bringing awareness to these type of injustices. We're also bringing forth content that can contribute to people's like mindset, as far as like just things that are educational. And any bit of help goes a long way, as far as incentives, programs. Anybody out there who has any sort of connections to nonprofits for anything for the urban community, I can very much use it. So please reach out to me, guys that are in those positions, because I'm really new at all of this, basically this charge that I'm trying to carry, and so I could use all the help that I could get, guys. So whoever's out there that can really help me bring this forth and more to life than what it is, I definitely appreciate it.
All
Yes,
right.
sir, my
Thank you
man. Thank you
for
for
coming.
having me, man. Sure, for sure.
You're welcome. You're welcome.